Hello everyone, Britt here from Scrappy Boy Stamps, and today we are making a Gatefold card using the Gate mini album die. This die set is fairly straightforward and is comprised of a base layer, the body of the gate, this large diamond accent piece, and the stitched base layer. To create my Gatefold card base, I cut one sheet of white cardstock into a panel that measures 7 by 11 and 2/8. Then I scored each side in 2 6/8 of an inch, and then cut the folded piece with my base die, avoiding the right and left folded sides. Matting pieces for the front and the interior flaps are cut from the stitched base layer, and I hand cut 2 panels for the back of the gate using our brand new pattern paper pack from the super popular new collection, A Chance to Fly. Now that I have all my pieces, let's assemble. So when you cut the body of the gate, it will already have a center embossed line. So before I add any of my layering pieces, I want to fold and reinforce that embossed line. Since I'll eventually be cutting this entire piece in half, that line helps work as a guide, not only helping me to place these 2 pattern pieces, but also ensuring that when I go to cut this entire panel in half, I already have a demarcation showing me where the center is. Once I've adhered the pattern layers, this entire panel will be attached to the stitched base layer. Just as a side note, I have really been enjoying using this mini brayer. I love how it flattens all of my layers with firm, even pressure. The final step for our front panel is to take it to our trimmer, and we'll cut it in half, going directly down that reinforced score line. By the way, if you are in the market for a trimmer, this Tonic and Tim Holtz rotary trimmer, I thought I didn't need it, but it's totally worth the hype. Next, I'll bring in my Gatefold card base and adhere the 2 pieces of the gate to the right and the left front flap. They should fit flush to the center line, leaving about an 1/8 inch of your card base visible all the way around the design. To complete the gate, I'll take the diamond accent piece and adhere it to the right side of the gate only. I wanted that entire diamond piece to lift up when I open the card, but feel free to cut that piece in half as well. It would work either way. Now let's move to building the inside of the card. First, I'll take these 2 green panels that I have created by die cutting the stitched base layer and trimming it down the middle into 2 even panels. Again, these will fit flush to that long straight side. My concept for this card came from the idea that even a single card could tell an entire story. And of course, the story that I wanted to tell was that of the smash hit Broadway musical turned big time blockbuster movie that inspired our new main Scrappy Boy collection, The Chance to Fly. I wanted to create a snapshot for the front of the card from the first half of the movie, and then a big scene for the interior of the card that represents the epic closing scene. To me, there's really no better way to do that than to use my favorite scene building dies, the Grass and Clouds Edger die set. So real talk, I definitely could have built the background of this scene onto a separate arched base layer and then attached the completed scene to my card. But I decided to use this method where I lay each piece down and then trace the shape I need so that I can hand cut to fit. I made this choice for one simple reason. Building this background on a separate piece of paper would have added an entire layer of extra bulk. And because I knew I would be adding extra dimension with my finishing details, along with the bulk created of overlapping all of my scene building details, I knew I was probably already at the limit of the things I could put on the inside of the card and still expect the front 2 panels to close and meet correctly. It's always a good idea when you're decorating the interior of the card to make sure that the things you're adding are not impeding the card from closing properly. As you can see, I started at the top of the panel with a blue strip, and as I attach my strips one on top of the other, I'll alternate between ivory and blue in color, which helps me to create a vast blue sky with fluffy ivory clouds. With the sky in place, we can move on to the papers that I've selected for the terrain in our scene. These are all cut with the Grass Edger dies, and now that I'll be placing things in between the folded edges of the card, I'll use a straight edge and a pencil to continue marking and cutting my pieces by hand. This was also the point in the process when I realized I would need to have the yellow brick road in order to place all of my terrain correctly. So I stopped and cut the yellow brick road, the Emerald City Towers, and the trees from the brand new Oz Scene Builder die set. Wait just a second, I know what you're thinking. Why did you use that very out of place paper for the ground? But hear me out. When I was coming up with all the ideas for this card, I knew I wanted to put in some kind of reference to another famous movie from the golden age of cinema that also takes place in Oz. And one of my favorite lines from that movie is, "Poppies, poppies will put them to sleep." So I broke out my Enchanted Forest pattern paper and added some poppies to our rolling hills. As you can see, I had to piece together that matte green cardstock. But here is a top tip for you. If you start to run out of a specific kind or color of cardstock and it won't stretch all the way across your scene, piece it together, but make sure you put the break behind another element in your scene. You'll see here in just a moment that I've strategically placed those breaks to the right side of my scene where I know I'm going to place the yellow brick road. Just make sure you're auditioning that piece that's going to cover up the awkward areas, and make sure you do so before you commit to the adhesive. I did in fact check all the way through my scene build, but I did so off camera. I also wanted to draw your attention to the other green pattern that I chose. I believe that paper is supposed to represent an aerial view of all the farmland in Kansas. I really love the idea of adding those two little Easter eggs into this part of the scene. Now, in my opinion, this is where the magic really happens. One of the things that ends up making this scene look so dynamic is the forced perspective given to us with the design of the yellow brick road and the size of the Emerald City Towers. The wider part of the road at the bottom looks like it's closer to us, and as it gradually gets smaller towards the top of the piece, ending with the Emerald City Towers at a smaller scale, it forces the eye to believe the illusion that some of our scene is much further away. And as you can see, once I add our main characters into our scene, their relatively large scale in comparison reinforces the illusion that they are significantly closer than some of the other elements. And before you freak out, I know I'm cutting off a little bit of the excess from each of the characters that's hanging over the side of the scene. But again, I didn't want anything to get in the way of the card folding properly, so to me, cutting down the images was well worth it. But you do what your heart can handle. To add finishing touches to my scene, I used several trees cut from the Oz Scene Builder die set, and then added a sun and some additional clouds cut from one of my other favorite scene building die sets, the Stitched Clouds, Sun, and Lightning Bolt die set. And just as before, I used this trace and trim method to make sure that my cloud and my sun do not exceed the top of my design. But here's a do as I say and not as I do moment. It is significantly easier to trace and trim if you have not already glued your element. It took a few extra seconds of finagling to get my sun cut down, but this is basically pretty forgiving, so it wasn't a big deal in the end. That's it for now for our interior scene. Now let's decorate the front. The two moments I was especially interested in portraying for this project were sort of the two turning point moments in the movie. If you're familiar with this story, you'll know that the two main characters start out as schoolyard enemies, and throughout the first installment of the story, they grow to become best friends. These two girls could not be more different at the beginning of the story, and early on they're forced to share a room. I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but this scene depicts the moment and the song where their loathing for each other starts to turn to friendship. The two stamp sets in this collection, Witchy Good Friends and The Chance to Fly, both offer some really amazing sentiments inspired by the dialogue from not only the movie but also the musical. I love the line, "We can't all come and go by bubble." That bit of dialogue is perfect for this character's personality, and I thought it was really fun to switch up the saying "no rest for the wicked" to reflect more of her perspective of the world. If nothing else, she worships at the altar of popularity, so I could see "no rest for the popular" definitely being her motto. It is unequivocally the thing she works the hardest at. After attaching my characters and my sentiments, I used a variety of little sequins and stars to add some sparkle, which helped me fill up some empty spaces and continue the theme. Off camera, I stamped a few sentiments for the inside of the card, and I decided to include both a nod to the end of the first movie and a little sort of spoiler that is included from the end of the musical. And as a final touch, I thought both of these deserve some little sequin stars as well. FYI, if you're looking for sequins and stars like these, I got these from Sizzix. And with that, our big Gatefold storybook card is done. I was so incredibly happy with how this card came out. I went to college for theater, and this is one of my favorite musicals of all time. But as you know, I always make a second project to stretch these supplies. This gate is so easy to turn into a shaker, and I thought it looked an awful lot like the front door of an ice castle. I wanted to do something a little different, so I mounted this to a journal page and was able to add them to this A5 6-ring journal using the new mini album tab dies. I plan on exploring this journaling concept with future collections, so keep an eye out on upcoming videos for more journal page inspiration. If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking with me. We love you in our little crafty community, and as always, we could not do this without you. Speaking of community, we would love for you to join us on Facebook and Instagram. There you can find new releases, shipping updates, product samples by our amazing design team, and join in the monthly challenge. If you are interested in the stamps and dies that I used in this video, visit scrappyboy.com to see the new releases and all of the old favorites. Links to the store, all of our socials, and everywhere you can find me are in the description box below. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, make sure you're subscribed to our channel, and you have the notification bell pushed so you don't miss any future uploads. And as always, if you got nothing else out of this video, remember this. Think of celebrated heads of state or especially great communicators. Do they have brains or knowledge? Don't make me laugh. They were popular. Why, it's all about popular. See you next time. Bye-bye.